the two groups of founders, what would they think about what's happening today? Michael, let's start with you.
Well, it's more than that. It's not just what's happening today. It's throughout our whole history. Almost every major controversy throughout our entire history from day one has been over the meaning of the Constitution. And the Federalist, Anti-Federalist debate is found in those over the National Bank during the Jacksonian period, over the Civil War, over the progressive changes that took place in the early 1900s, over the New Deal, over the Great Society. All of these are echoes of the great debate between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. I like to point to one of the biggest issues today is Obamacare and the concept of federalism, which is built into the Constitution. Federalism being the separation of powers between the national government and the state government. And one of the primary challenges to Obamacare as a national law is coming from the states and the state attorney generals. And if we didn't have federalism, those state attorney generals would be working for the U.S. Attorney General Holden. And it's unlikely or impossible for them to bring a suit if their boss was Holden, because he just wouldn't allow it. Federalism allows that fight to take place between the state attorney generals and this law called Obamacare.
Troy, what about the Anti-Federalists?
Well, the Anti-Federalists, as I remind people in the workshops that Michael and I have been hosting the past year or so, the Anti-Federalists need to be consulted, because I remind folks that the Anti-Federalists forced Federalists, the ones who wanted the ratification of the Constitution, forced them to write the Federalist Papers, and that's a commentary that many people who are concerned about original intent consult on a regular basis. And then many of these Anti-Federalists later became some of the first congressmen, the first senators, and they were interpreting the Constitution in their proposed legislation and so forth. So the anti-federalism, there are echoes of anti-federalism in the early 1790s, 1800s, and even today. Like today, if you study the state ratification conventions, which James Madison said were the key to understanding original intent of the Constitution, today, if people say if people are for term limits, that's an echo of anti-federalism. If people believe in citizen politicians, they don't think someone running for national office has had to have so many years of political experience, that's a voice of anti-federalism. If somebody asks a legislator to point to the Constitution, the U.S., or the state constitution, point to the Constitution and tell me where this proposed legislation is constitutional, that is the voice of anti-federalism living on, because the anti-federalists, even after the Constitution had been ratified, they demanded constitutional justifications.